right.
Because you can play all year round.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this week and tonight for the United States Association of Blind Athletes National Blind Sports Week. And today we had a fantastic day with our global athletes live from Fort Wayne, Indiana. And that was super cool. And tonight is even as equally super cool because I am so honored and privileged to introduce to you my good friend and colleague, Dr. Lauren Lieberman. Lauren is the leading authority in the world, not in the United States, in the world on sports and recreation and physical activity and adaptive physical activity for children and youth who are blind and visually impaired. Dr. Lieberman received her doctorate degree at the Oregon State University, the wrong OSU, go Bucks, but the Oregon State University, with an emphasis in sensory impairments. She taught at the Perkins School for the Blind in Boston, where she emphasized working with children who are blind and deaf. Lauren is currently a distinguished service professor who has taught more than 25 years at the college at Brockport State University in New York, teaching adapted physical education to, I'm certain, countless students across the United States and preparing them for future employment. Dr. Lieberman has co-authored 18 different books. I can't even read a book one a month, but she has written 18 books and has published more than 125 articles on adaptive physical education. Most importantly, or just as importantly, which has created her as an international leader, is she has, in 1996, Dr. Lauren Lieberman created Campabilities, which is a week-long summer camp program and winter camp, because I think one's in upstate New York, for children and youth who are blind and visually impaired. And through those camps, she unlocks each child's potential, and their parents find out what their children's potentials are. And she teaches children who are blind and visually impaired how to advocate for themselves to be a champion in this world. Her mantra is abilities and achievements first, not disabilities. She loves playing ultimate frisbee. She loves kayaking down the Erie Canal and hiking. I think she hiked her 44th largest peak in New York this last month, 44 different peaks in New York. And she loves to play guitar. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am so honored and pleased to introduce you tonight to Dr. Lauren Lieberman.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate that, that introduction. And one of my most proud professional things is I was on the board of USABA for many years and contributed to the growth, and so proud of that. And then I'm just going to be sharing my screen for a bit before we get into some questions. And so I just want to give you a little bit of background about Campabilities and what it is. It's an educational sports camp for children who are visually impaired, blind, or deafblind. And this is my contact information if anybody's interested. And the Campabilities website is campabilities.org. It's www.campabilities.org. Another exciting accomplishment is last year, I received a global Fulbright scholarship from the US government. And these are very hard to come by, but the US government thought that Campabilities was important enough to go and start other camps in other countries. So I was fortunate enough to go to Ghana and South Africa, Ireland and Brazil, and help them start more Campabilities programs, train teachers and parents. And it was just a wonderful journey. And we just got a grant to start a new Campabilities in Kenya. It might have to be virtual at first, but it's great to know that we have that opportunity in the future, more camps in Africa. Another thing I'm really proud of is our institute. I'm the co-director of the Institute of Movement Studies for Individuals with Visual Impairments. It's housed at SUNY Brockport, but we do research, programming, leadership, and education with professors, parents, and teachers from all over the world. Our website is here. It's brockport.edu/IMSV. And one positive thing from COVID is we made this amazing video, if anybody's interested, on our institute and all the accomplishments and kind of what we do and how to get involved. And this picture is actually two women when we were doing capabilities in Bangladesh, running using a technique with these are two cricket wickets to help them swinging their arms while they're running. And so this is a picture of our capabilities with all 4 different groups of kids. We usually have 55 kids plus at our face-to-face camp. And so what is Capabilities? Capabilities is a 1-week educational sports camp for children and teens who are blind, visually impaired, and deafblind. It's set up to provide one-to-one instructional situation for each person. And the one-to-one person is typically a college student, sometimes a high school student, that's learning how to teach people who are blind and visually impaired. And as Mark said in his wonderful introduction, we teach children how to reach their potential in sports and in life. And I'm going to explain to you some of the ways that we do that. But the goals for this presentation, I want to teach you what is Capabilities and how can we include children with visual impairments or deaf blindness in all aspects of sport and in daily living. I want us to understand how all the components of the expanded core curriculum can be met through sports, and how to promote self-advocacy, which is a big part of what we do. So our mission is to empower children in sports, to train future teachers, to conduct research. We provide a wonderful respite for the parents. And then, of course, community awareness. When our kids get out into the community and they ride bikes and they swim and they run. This is a picture of one of our athletes running in a 5K with her physical education teacher, with her vision teacher right behind her, showing the community that yes, people who are blind and visually impaired can run, and they can run far. And Mark, I know some of you might know that Mark Lucas is a big time long distance runner, and he's helped people run across the United States. I know with Jason Ramirez, he helped him run across the United States. And Mark also ran the Pikes Peak Marathon with a runner who is blind. And that helps bring awareness into the community. So we started Capabilities in 1996. We had 27 campers. And our first sports were beep baseball, goalball, gymnastics, swimming, track and field, and archery. Now, in 2020, we have over 20 camps in the US and 10 in other countries, and growing. And even with the virtual camps, and actually the virtual camp that we started this past year is very accessible and easy to do to start new camps. So in New York, we're fortunate because we have 5 Capabilities throughout New York, and the Commission for the Blind in New York is very supportive of us and our Capabilities. In the US, here's some of our camps. There's dots here all over the US, from Washington to Arizona, Alaska, Texas, Florida, Nebraska, Iowa, all the way up to Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Georgia. We have 2 camps in Georgia and 2 camps in North Carolina. So we're really excited that we're growing, and people who are running camps currently are helping other people start camps as well. And then we have Capabilities across the world. So this is a map of the world showing where some of the camps that we have in different parts of the world. And fortunately, like I said, we have camps in Bangladesh, we have camps in Latvia, Finland, Ireland, and Portugal, and other countries. And I want everybody to think, so Kat was from USABA was telling me about all the different people that signed up for this webinar. And she told me that some of the people are athletes, some of the people are parents, and some are teachers. So I want everybody to think, how do you promote sports with your students or your child or yourself? What do you do in the summer to improve their sports and their skills in the expanded core curricula areas, which we'll get to in a minute? What do you feel is going well and what can you improve? So why don't you think about a certain student or a certain person while we're doing this presentation? Does this person get to do all these different sports, track and field, swimming, beep baseball, tandem biking, judo, stand-up paddleboard, beep baseball, goalball, gymnastics, cricket? Yes, there is professional blind cricket, kayaking, fishing, basketball, rollerblading, showdown, soccer or football, rock climbing, archery, sailing, and cycling, and soccer, five-a-side soccer is what I meant on here, okay? So I just want to share, it's not just a sports camp. We teach the kids who come to our programs to do every component of the expanded core curriculum. At every Campability, students are guided out of their comfort zone to take on challenges, from first times with independent living skills to first times on a bike. And it's also authentic. So when they're going in the locker room to change for swimming, they're learning how to change their clothes. They're learning how to put their towel on the rail and go swimming, find their towel, take a shower, get dressed. Those are life skills. In Campabilities, students are allowed to make mistakes and take risks. And it's okay because they're supported. So for independent living skills, they're living with roommates. They're managing their personal items. They're serving meals. They're getting their food. They're eating their food. They're bringing their tray up. They're dumping their tray out. They learn time management, which is also a vocational skill. Compensatory access skill. They're learning concept development. Where are things in a beep baseball field? Where is home plate? Where is first base? They learn speaking and listening skills, social skills, communication. They learn tactile readiness. They have to learn tactile readiness like in goalball. And then they can learn print reading or braille reading, because we have everything in large print and braille as well. For social interaction skills, they can interact with their friends and coaches. They can express emotions, excitement, disappointment. They learn cheers. They learn to give high fives when it's not COVID. They learn how to do a cheer with their group. And they learn about nonverbal communication from their counselor and their coaches and their peers. For orientation mobility, they learn spatial concepts, trailing. They learn to listen for cars when they cross the street. They can request assistance or decline assistance, and it's okay. They learn that saying no is okay. They talk about body image. What's an athletic body? They learn independent travel in familiar and unfamiliar environments, and an awesome opportunity at our campus. They get to navigate a college campus, a college cafeteria, a college dorm, which is great exposure. For sensory efficiency, they learn auditory and tactile discrimination. They might hear an auditory cue when they're running around the track, so they know every time they went around the track. They get to use their long and short-term memory for places in the dorm, and then also places on the canal, on the track, and the fields. They get to interpret tactile stimuli, recognize tactile characteristics and objects. When they take their tray out, they get to clean the tray and put it back in the stack of trays. All of our camp supports recreation and leisure, from managing their time to the physical games and sports that they learn, understanding rules, procedures for games. And this all leads to the self-determination by learning all the different sports, all those sports that are available to them in the community, on college campuses, and maybe at home. Learning how to set goals, learning how to discover personal abilities. And related to self-determination, we teach self-advocacy so they can get what they want, because they know what they can do and what they deserve to be able to do. And then they also learn problem solving, choice making, self-understanding. And then for career education and vocational experiences, they know functions of community workers. We have nurses, we have inspiring speakers, we have professional speakers who are blind, coaches, teachers. They learn how to follow simple rules and complex rules, and they learn teamwork. And they also learn how to get places on time. What do I have to wear? Who do I have to go with? And then they also have a concern for their quality of work and how they interact with people. We also have an intern program where we have counselors in training, we have assistant group leaders, and we have group leaders, and people with visual impairments get to do all of those experiences. So how do we teach these novel skills? A lot of the sports that we teach are the first time they've ever played soccer, the first time they've ever batted a ball. I even have some kids, maybe they're 14 years old, they never ran before. How do we teach these skills? So we do what's called pre-teaching. We use tactile boards for every single sport. So here is a tactile board for goalball. And this young lady never played goalball before. So she's learning the different positions in goalball. She's mapping it out in her mind, and then she's learning the different spaces in goalball around the court. So we use tactile boards to help with understanding the entire court, the field, the playing area. And we teach them about the terminology, the scoring, the equipment, the positioning, defensive positioning, offensive positioning, also scoring, and strategies are included in our instructions. And then some of our other teaching strategies, here's a boy, he's feeling a kayak. I mean, you can't just jump in a kayak and understand how to kayak. We teach all of our boating skills on land first: kayaking, canoeing, stand-up paddleboard. What are the parts of the kayak? What are the parts of the paddle? How does it all fit together? That concept development is such an important part of instruction. We cannot leave that out. I know that some programs, you're in a hurry, you jump on a horse, you ride the horse. But if you don't understand what a horse is, what's the point of riding a horse if you don't know the ears and the nose and the tail? You have to understand the whole animal. Same thing with biking. We always have them feel the whole piece of equipment first. Some other instructional techniques we use are called physical guidance, tactile modeling, coactive movement, and cueing. And so I'll just give you some of these tactile strategies here. I'm going to explain the physical guidance is when the teacher or a peer moves the child through a motion. So for swimming, they might move the child's arm through the motion. They might show them how to do the flutter kick. But sometimes that's just not enough. So maybe the child has to feel the teacher's arm or feet kick, and that's called tactile modeling. And then coactive movement is when the teacher does the movement with the child. And here's a picture of a young lady trying to do a slide on carpet squares, and that's helping her with her learning how to slide, and they're doing it together. So coactive is when the teacher or a peer and the child who's blind does it together to learn the momentum of the activity. And it's all done with verbal cueing or tactile cueing if the child's deaf and blind. And some other tactile strategies, we have a guide wire here, which is a long rope with a carabiner or a ring on it that slides where you can run along that, and it will help you with being independent in your running or motor skills. We have a teacher running with 2 hockey sticks with a child who's blind, so that's helping them learn how to swing their arms. And here we have our friend Marla Runyon, who's an Olympian who's visually impaired. She's on the treadmill running, and a student who's blind is feeling her run, and he's tactile modeling her, understanding the concepts of running. And so these are just some of the tactile techniques that we use to help kids understand the concepts of some of the foundational skills of the sports that we teach. So some additional strategies, we use a lot of tandem bikes, and tandem biking is also a Paralympic sport. We do all the Paralympic sports at our Camp Abilities. And then here's another picture of a guide wire out on the track to help the athletes learn how to run. So some unique features of Camp Abilities, and all of our Camp Abilities across the world, each camp has unique features, and they typically teach a lot of the Paralympic sports, but they also teach sports that are popular in their area. And we all use some forms of assessment so that we can assess the kids, because that's the only way they'll know if they're going to achieve. We also have a modifications checklist And we send that home with every athlete so that they know what they need to be successful in every sport. And we teach them self-advocacy so that when they want to do an after-school sport or they want to have access to physical education and that curriculum, they know how to ask for it. They know how to teach their teachers, because most of the teachers really don't know how to teach kids with visual impairments. And to brag about their accomplishments, we have what's called Care to Share. And in Care to Share, the kids stand up, they say their name, and they say what they're proud of, because we all need to learn how to brag more. And I think we can brag about the kids, but I want them to be able to tell someone, I did this and I'm really proud of it, because we all need to do that, because a lot of people underestimate kids with visual impairments. And then one of the things we all do is we have elite athletes and Paralympic athlete role models that sometimes Zoom into our camps or sometimes come and visit personally. We were fortunate to have Kevin Broussard, our own USABA person, come in and to our virtual camp and talk about his experiences with track and field and judo. And it was just great to have him there. And so a lot of these materials you will see under campabilities.org under instructional materials, where we also have lots of educational videos, tip sheets, and we have all these checklists if you're interested. We also have some of the books that you'll see at the end of this presentation. So again, we assess all of our sports at camp, and we also assess campers on their orientation mobility, their independence, and their expanded core curriculum skills. So some of the Paralympians that we've had, and this certainly isn't all of them, but we've had our own Trisha Zorn, who is on the USABA board with me, Marla Runyon, Jim Mastro, who's for judo. Marla was track and field, and Trisha was a swimmer. Andy Jenks is an award-winning goalball player. Chris Shepe is a sailor. Cody Colchado is a deaf-blind powerlifter. Asia Miller, a medal-winning goalball player, and Jen Armbruster. Peter Gottwald for track and field. We had Rachel Weeks, who's deaf-blind, and she's a para-triathlete. Martha Ruther, who's a swimmer, and Lindsay Ball, who is a skier, just to name a few. And there's pictures here of Andy Jenks and Trisha Zorn. Another thing I'm really proud of is that we're working with USABA on the Five-A-Side Soccer Initiative, and we were fortunate to get a nice grant from the Gibney Foundation to promote Five-A-Side Soccer around the US. So we had 12 campabilities, and we gave them all equipment. And we also created this Five-A-Side Soccer manual to help with a validated assessment for Five-A-Side. There's lesson plans in here and everything you need to know about Five-A-Side Soccer. This is a free download on our website, and I encourage everybody, if you want to teach Five-A-Side Soccer, this is a great tool to use. And I want to thank Dr. Emily Gilbert and Dr. Adam Pinnell for creating this Five-A-Side Soccer manual. And then also we work with the American Printing House for the Blind to help them develop some of their equipment, like the beeping ball that the American Printing House for the Blind has. We helped with the Walk Run for Fitness kit, some of the books, the motor development curriculum that's a free download, and also right now we're working on sport courts. And this is actually coming within the next year. This is a whole big sport court that we created through Campabilities, where any teacher, whatever you're teaching, you pull it out and you'll have a tactile court with Braille and little people to show the concept of that sport. So instead of having to make those tactile courts yourself now, all the camps will be able to use uniform courts that look the same, which is going to be very helpful for the teachers and the coaches. And we, of course, we have beep baseball and goalball in there as well, Five-A-Side Soccer. Some of the books through the American Printing House for the Blind, Everybody Plays is a book for young children about how children with visual impairments play sports. This is the Gross Motor Development Curriculum. This is a free download on our website that teaches you how to teach motor skills to young children who are blind and visually impaired. This is a Physical Education in Sports for Individuals with Visual Impairment or Deaf Blindness, Foundations of Instruction. This is a textbook on how do you teach children or adults with visual impairments, all the different sports from birth to old age, and it includes recreation. It's available through the American Printing House for the Blind. And then there's a lot of other books that are on our Capabilities website and through the American Printing House for the Blind. And so this past year was an unusual year, and we could not hold our Capabilities face-to-face because of COVID. So we were very fortunate to be able to host a virtual Capabilities, which is a Capabilities we did on Zoom. We had 26 athletes. We did 6 sports all week, and we had the Paralympic role model Zoom in. We had a great group of people. Since we could Zoom in, we could invite anyone, which included, as I said, our own Kevin Broussard. So I just zipped through our Capabilities, just a little, in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer questions. At this point, people can ask questions. I can share more resources if anybody needs them.
Lauren, thank you for sharing your presentation. We have a question from Walt Renari, who's out in California, who's also a friend and colleague. And he asks, beyond sports, do you spend any time during your camps to instruct visually impaired children on the basics on how to engage in physical activities unrelated to any sports, specific sports?
Well, yes, we do. We teach them fitness, like how do you do fitness in a gym, fitness at home. We do some yoga. And so how do you access sport when you get home? So we do talk about the different avenues that they can get to access sport when they're at home. Good question.
So I have a question for you, Dr. Lieberman. Assume I'm one of your obnoxious freshmen coming in to college, and why should I or any student want to major in adaptive physical education? The pay is low, usually, typically on most professions. So why would any student want to major in adapted PE?
That's a great question, Mark. I think that our general physical education curriculum includes one course in adapted physical education. Excuse me. And unfortunately, we don't see teachers that really are well prepared to teach all children unless they have more education and more experiences. So at most adapted physical education, if you concentrate in adapted PE or you get your master's in adapted, you get a lot more coursework, and you also get that practical experience, field work. And research shows that the more you teach kids with disabilities, the more confident you are. And so unfortunately, our curriculum doesn't allow everybody to get more experience with kids with disabilities. They get what they get in their field experience. But if you purposely take an adapted physical education concentration, or you do your master's in adapted physical education, you are going to get so much more of a foundation of how to teach all children, and you're going to be more qualified to be a general physical education teacher or that specialist in a school district or a special school if you'd like to. It just opens up more doors for you, and you're a more competent and confident teacher. And the other thing I love about adapted PE, it's never the same. If you are teaching the average class with no variation and you taught soccer, it's going to be the same every single semester, every year. But if you get to teach that heterogeneous group, then you really are going to be challenged all the time, and it's always going to be different. And so this is why I love adapted physical education. I'm always learning new things, not just from my colleagues or from research, but I learn a lot from my students. They ask questions that I never even thought of. And then I have to say, well, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe we should do some research. They give me some of my best research questions. And so for me at this level too, it also generates a lot more interaction and a lot more curiosity than just general physical education. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. So another question that's coming forward from Eric Tuttle. He wants to know, do you know Eric?
I know Lauren? Eric, yes.
He wants to know what strategies. So we know that blindness is a very low incidence disability, and so it becomes a challenge for USABA to recruit for team sports and even camp abilities to recruit other children and youth who are blind and visually impaired because of the low incidence disability. So can you tell us a few strategies on how to find, recruit, identify children and youth and families that have a child who's blind and visually impaired to attend camp abilities or USABA events for that matter?
Eric, that's a great question. And I think, Mark, we all run into this problem.
Right.
One of the big issues is finding the kids, because fortunately in our country, they are mostly included in their home schools. But unfortunately, sometimes they're harder to find than if they were at a school for the blind. And the other issue is when you do find the kids, sometimes their parents are overprotective. I have parents of kids who are 12 and they say they're not ready yet. They're not ready yet to let their child go to a sports camp. And so how do you find the kids and how do you teach the parents that it's going to be okay? They have the right to try these sports. They might fall on the tandem bike, but you know what? They're going to be okay because we're going to teach them how to do it safely as much as we can. So what we did is we connected with the New York State Commission for the Blind. They have vision and mobility teachers all over the state. So through Albany, they connect with every vision teacher and mobility teacher, give them the information, they give it to the parents. Now, the issue of overprotection, we just have to send them testimonials. We make videos. If you look at our website, you see kids as young as 8 and 9 years old staying for the week at our camp, and hopefully that might convince them. But one of the things we do is we have what's called Camp Can Do. It's a one-day camp for the younger kids. So if your child's 5 years old, they come to Camp Can Do for one whole day, and it's at Camp Abilities, and they get a buddy who's older, and they learn how to play goalball and swim and beat baseball.
Nice.
And it's called Camp Can Do because they learn what they can do.
Oh, I love it.
So it is great because, and sometimes we have those 9 and 10-year-olds, their parents are overprotective. I say, just come for the one-day camp. You can hold your child's hand the whole time, but you'll see what they can do, and you'll see other kids like them being successful. One day of Camp Can Do convinces the parents that the kids can come to camp.
Nice.
Outstanding. Usually.
Hey, you have a fan in Africa, and her name, if I probably mispronounce it as I do most names, her name is Agunda Gomes, and she says hi from Angola, Africa. Yeah. And she met you at the ISAPA and attended some of your workshops. So obviously you resonated with her, and she wants to know, how can she develop a camp abilities in Angola, Africa?
I love that question because, like I said, we're developing more and more camps in Africa. So on our Camp Abilities website, under media, there's a whole Camp Abilities startup manual. How do you start a Camp Abilities? From the beginning, it gives you every step of the way. So we created this book. You can download it. You can print it out. It's in English. You can translate it if you need to, but it really, a lot of our camps have started by using that Camp Abilities startup manual. And I'm glad you asked that because I think that is a great question for anybody who's interested in starting a camp. The people from Kenya are using that manual, and I know a lot of the people have also been using that manual. And I also can tell you some other people in Africa that have either volunteered at our camp in Ghana or I've met with, and they might be able to come and help you. So, and I'd be happy to come when it's not COVID and help start that camp as well.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Aguida.
I'll go with you.
Yeah, come with me, Mark. It might be hot though.
Right. Dr. Lieberman, you are a visionary leader in the field of blindness and adaptive PE and sports and recreation. If you had a crystal ball, what would you say what the field looks like in 10, 15 years? And what do we need to do as professionals and parents to continue to move the needle for inclusion and access for children and youth and adults who are blind and visually impaired? What do you see? How do you see the field moving? In what direction? Positively, negatively, and what should we do?
Well, right now, I feel like a lot of our momentum, we've had a lot of momentum before COVID, so that kind of stopped some of our momentum. But I find the biggest barrier to kids reaching their potential and showing the world what they can do is the limited knowledge of physical education teachers. We have to get physical education teachers all on board that kids with visual impairments shouldn't sit on the side and ride the exercise bike. They shouldn't go in the weight room. They can play soccer. They can play basketball. They can run on the track and field the entire way around the track. I mean, I'm sure, Mark, you've heard some of these ridiculous stories about what people put limits on kids with visual impairment. Right. So we're really pushing the idea of the dignity of risk, letting the kids with visual impairments take the same risk as their peers, because the peers have the right to play basketball and get hit by a ball, play volleyball. You might hurt your finger, you might get hit in the head, but you're still playing volleyball. And so we can't take away that dignity of risk for children with visual impairments. It has to be a reasonable risk. We have to make sure we have auditory equipment, some modified equipment, maybe some modified rules, but pulling them out of their inclusive class, not allowing them to know what hockey is and know what basketball is and know what football is, that's taking away their dignity of risk. And we have to make sure we give that to them. They have the right for that. And so
dignity
those are some of
risk. I love it.
That's what, so I have a graduate student now, Lindsay Ball, you know, Lindsay is in our program. She's a Paralympic skier and a marathon runner. And she was excluded from physical education. And she was actually happy about it because it was such a bad experience when she was younger. And so she's spearheading this dignity of risk because the concept applies 100% to kids with visual impairments. But the dignity of risk concept's only been applied to older adults. You know, saying that a person who's older should be able to do things, and if they know what the risk is, I might fall and break my hip, but I really still want to do that skiing. I still want to go grocery shopping by myself. And so if you look up dignity of risk, everything, all the literature is about older adults. We want our kids, and that's why we're teaching self-advocacy, because so many of our kids are eliminated or excluded from so many things that are so simple, even things like swimming. I've had kids, their teacher tells them they can't swim because they can't see. And I think that is taking away their whole opportunity to have a sport that's totally accessible to them. And so the dignity of risk, and if anybody needs some literature on that, we're working on that right now, because this is what's happening. If we apply that principle, to answer your question, more kids will learn what their peers are learning. They'll be out in the community, they'll be participating in sports, and we won't have so many problems with people not believing they can do typical things that their peers do.
Beautiful. Are there other questions out there this evening for Lauren Lieberman? Lauren, I have a personal question for you. You ready for it?
Yes, I'm ready.
You sure?
I don't know.
Why and how did you start in this profession? Why and how? Tell us that story.
God, how much time do we have? Actually, so I had an amazing professor in my undergrad adaptive PE class. I was in general PE at the beginning, and I had Dr. Monica Lepore at Westchester University. Shout out to Monica. She runs the Campabilities. Actually, she runs the one in Pennsylvania and Delaware and Arizona with her daughter, Maria, Dr. Maria Lepore.
And she's on tonight, by the way. She's giving you kudos already tonight. Go ahead, continue. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Lepore. But when I sat in her class, and I was in general physical education, and I learned about adaptive PE, and she was teaching sign language and just so passionate about adaptive PE. I said, I have to do that. That's the coolest thing. And she's the coolest person. And so, and also at Westchester, we had another professor that also ran a program with Ski for Light, which is cross-country skiing for adults who are blind and visually impaired. So I volunteered for Ski for Light. And I taught a woman how to cross country ski who had never cross country skied before. And honestly, either did I. But that was the first time I cross country skied, but I taught her how to do it. And she told me, she said, Lauren, I never could have done that without you. And that feeling was like a drug. And it still is. When I teach someone who's blind how to do something that they never did before, it gives you energy. It just gives you motivation. You just want to do it more and help more people. It's just different than any other population I've taught. So right there and then, my senior year in college, I said, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life: adaptive PE and people with visual impairments. And so at Perkins School for the Blind, I was lucky enough to teach one of my students, Eddie, how to ride a unicycle. And Eddie's deaf and blind. And I taught him how to ride a unicycle. And he taught me how to see the potential in everybody. And if you want to see that, by the way, it's on YouTube, and you can just put in deaf, blind, and unicycle, and that video of Eddie riding the unicycle will come up. But my point is that when I was at Perkins, I learned about how do you teach people with visual impairments. I had great contacts there. I had great experience coaching 3 different sports: goalball, swimming, track and field. And so that experience followed me to after my doctorate. When I got to Brockport, we had great practicums at Brockport, like so many amazing practicums, but almost no kids with visual impairments in any of our practicums. So here's these teachers in this wonderful, very well-known university that are going to go out and be teachers with no experience teaching kids with visual impairments. And you know, and I know, we can't teach kids with visual impairments from a book. Right. Or from a video, or you put a blindfold on for an hour and you play goalball. You're not going to be an expert in teaching kids with visual impairments.
Right.
And so I had to do something about it, and I got a grant and I started Camp Abilities. That was 1995 when I started it, and in 96 was when we had our first camp. So that's the short of it. I mean, I could tell you more about the journey, which it's been a journey and it still is. I mean, it's an exciting journey. And the other thing I'm really proud of is that a lot of our former students are now Camp Abilities directors, assistant directors. They're doing research. They're university professors promoting this whole field. And it's just wonderful to see that legacy continue. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of these young people taking over and really being leaders in the field. And that's our hope for the future too, Mark. I feel
Absolutely.
like teaching this whole next generation, right. How do you teach kids with visual impairments?
Nice, fantastic. Don Thunen Jr. asked, does Camp Abilities organize competitions for children to test new skills?
Oh, new sports, you mean?
Yeah, new skills, new sports.
Actually, that's a funny thing. A lot of people will ask us if they can introduce new sports. The kids love trying new things. And I don't know if you saw it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like this target game where kids who are blind throw a ball onto this target and it tells you how close you are to the middle. I can't remember the name of it, but we're going to try that this summer. We're going to buy one and try it. But there's anything that's unique and new, like disc golf. That's a growing sport. So we do disc golf now. Stand-up paddleboard's really popular. Now we do stand-up paddleboard. So when new sports come around and their friends are doing it, I want kids with visual impairments to be in the know and on the cutting edge and experience that and know if they like it or not and know how to modify it. So yes, we do new sports and new activities that are new. And sometimes it doesn't go well and the kids don't like it. And sometimes it's like, wow, I love this. And I've had kids get a kick bike, it's like a scooter, but it's like a bike. And I've had kids learn how to play disc golf and they play disc golf in their neighborhood or the local park. And, but I also think it's important that they learn every Paralympic sport so they know what's available to them in the future.
Excellent. Lauren, I don't know if you know this or not, but I have a grandchild who is visually impaired, and he's going to the Anchor Center for the Blind, and he is 1.5 years old. So if I were his parents or his parents were online tonight, what would you tell them, the parents, my son and daughter-in-law to ensure that Caden is successful in life and receive the services that he should have to be as successful as possible?
That's a great question. So I would make sure that Caden learns every foundational skill, every locomotor skill, every object control skill. That Caden gets every kind of ball with bells, different textures, different sounds, different smells, tries different sports, and not to overprotect them. Let him fall down. Let him get back up. Let him learn his limits and his balance and his proprioception. And let him tell people, other people, what he needs to be successful. Can you move over there? Because the light is in my eyes and I need you to move over because I can't see you. Those little things are going to give him the tools he needs, the foundation to be an athlete and to be able to play the sports that his peers are playing and choose what he wants to do when he grows up.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Other questions or comments for Dr. Lieberman this evening? All right. Thank you, Lauren Lieberman, Dr. Lieberman, for your wonderful presentation tonight. All of you who are out there, don't forget to join us tomorrow beginning at noon. Today we had Goebel all day and Dr. Lieberman, and tomorrow we have Dr. Mark Vink out of Philly. It's Judo Day. He's at noon. And Paralympic athlete Ben Goodrich at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And tomorrow night, check it out, blind hockey, one of the fastest growing team sports, winter sports in the United States, trying to make it onto the Paralympic program. Go ahead, Lauren.
Also, I want to give a shout out, Andrew Mead Colgrove, one of our athletes from camp. He is a goalie on that team, on the U.S. blind hockey team.
Nice.
And he's unfortunately not practicing now. Nobody's practicing right now, but I can tell you that he's going to be a name on that roster in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks for that shout out. And don't forget to participate in your favorite activity and post it on Facebook, because we want you to be an advocate for people who are blind and visually impaired by posting your own favorite sport and celebrating National Blind Sports Day. Whether you're kayaking in down the Erie Canal like Lauren does, or spelunking in Kentucky, post your favorite Facebook social media post. And don't forget to get out there on Saturday, October the 3rd, and do something. Hop, skip, jump, walk backwards, swim, tandem bike. Post your favorite picture of doing something. You don't have to be blind or visually impaired. Let's all celebrate and advocate for the rights of people who are blind and visually impaired, and promote the abilities of people who are blind and visually impaired, like Dr. Lieberman has done all of her career. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Lauren Lieberman, love you to death. Everybody have a good night.
You're awesome, Mark. Thanks so much, everybody. Keep up the good work.
You
Take
too,
care.
Lauren.